this is the way the world looks when a person is really in touch with the God of Israel. The whole world around them can be going stark raving mad, but in their space, there's peace. And this is exactly what King David said in stating that only with your eyes will you see the recompense of the wicked. And it's true. I don't even see it in person in my real eyes. God even shields me through the computer. If I turn off the computer, I don't have to see it at all, because I'm really connected. I don't believe I know. There's an infinite difference between those who merely believe and those who God knows are genuine enough to be made to know the truth. God of Israel doesn't come to say, you will know the truth in some undesignated time and it will set you free, but in the meantime spend 2,000 plus years in slavery. God just tells the truth. So if you get a line like that, you know that you're being led by the nose by some kind of a huckster. And let's just call Yeshu what he was, a narcissistic huckster. Somebody called me the B word last week because I had the nerve to make good on Yeshu's promise that she'll know the truth, it'll set her free, and tell it to her. I don't make idle promises. And she got very upset. She thinks that there were four people, four personalities in the Garden of Eden. You know, there was God, and there was the serpent, and there was Adam, and there was Eve, and these four are having at one another, you know. And she thinks that there's a tree there that's called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. She doesn't know a word of Hebrew. And that Eve, she doesn't know how to pronounce Chava's name, sinned, fell for this line, you know, by the serpent, and she doesn't know that Hanachash is actually HaMashiach, that she doesn't even recognize the real Mashiach when she sees him. And she basically disses the mother of all that lives. She judges the mother of all that lives. She's not alone in doing that. I mean, all Christians do it, and even most Jews do it. However, at least in the Jewish tradition, even those Jews who don't know how to read the narrative correctly know enough to know that it can't possibly be as told, you know, so they know that there's some sort of a secret Torah that nobody except a few get into, so even if they can't see it themselves, they know that it exists. But the Christians, you know, really think that they're in a position to be able to diss and judge the mother of all that lives and condemn all of humanity, you know, and I put her in her place. I mean, it's just like, know your place, Gentile. You have no business commenting. on our holy texts that you have no access to. And she got angry and she called me the B word. Well, let me tell you something. There is no tree of good and evil. Tov ve'ra is not good and evil. I'll give you just one leg up. The Hebrew word rea means a friend. So what's actually being talked about is, and Eitz Hadat is, Eitzah Dat is a good suggestion of wisdom, of knowing, coming from a good friend. That's actually what's happening there. And you cannot understand the Genesis narrative unless you've gotten past seeing the duality of good and evil. In order to be able, and Jews get tripped up on this too, but at least we have the advantage of having a few Jews who do know how to read it, so that all Jews know that there is a secret way of reading it, and even if they have not yet accessed it, it exists. Whereas, Christians don't have that. And in order to be able to get that narrative correct, first of all, you have to be able to read Hebrew. Second of all, you have to have gotten past dualism. You have to be a real monotheist. And you have to know that God is not either good or bad, and there is no force standing against God that is good or bad. You have to know, you have to be in a place of innocence. From a place of innocence, the absolute innocence of Chava in that narrative can be seen. Certainly we don't reach her level of that. She's the mother of all that lives, and those of us who don't even know how an amoeba works are certainly not in a position to understand her level of wisdom. But we know that being a mother, she was guided by protectiveness and by love and by nothing but good intentions. But in order to be able to see that in her past the narrative, which admittedly on the surface not only can trip people up, but is designed to trip those who don't deserve to be able to see it up. One has to be innocent. And everything that is happening in America now, all of the divisions of duality, white versus black, liberal versus conservative, rich versus poor, all of Pepsi versus Coke, all of the ways in which you put this up against that are derivative of your essential duality. The minute that somebody erroneously ascribes to God goodness as opposed to evil, and then thinks that there is another being that is so evil that it rises up and challenges God. Even ascribing good to God is not correct. God is absolutely innocent, absolutely pure, infinitely past any such nonsense as like good versus evil. It doesn't even apply. If you put those kinds of levels, those kinds of labels on God, that is going to color your entire life experience. And from that point on, everything that you're going to experience is going to become not only this vis-a-vis that, but this versus that. My understanding is the Cardinal Vitano, I think his name is, wrote a letter to Trump, and he writes about the eternal struggle of good against evil. I hope you understand how evil that is, to think that there is an eternal struggle between good and evil. Evil, resident, original evil, exists in the eye of the beholder. And if you look out into the world and you see evil, and you think that your opponents have nothing good about them, you don't need to say anything about them, they are outside of the pale of what you'll even listen to, of what you'll even consider. From that point on, your life is going to be a hell of this against that. It's going to go on and on and on and on. You'll create duality in everything. And this, unfortunately, is being played out in America in the extreme. And I have to tell you something honestly, boys and girls. I don't see that you're accumulating more and more and more factoids about corruption is leading to the eradication of corruption. You thought that the truth that's going to set you free is found in some classified document somewhere. Now that the documents have been classified, you're still in the midst of hell. And it's not just the ordinary people that are under the sway of this Christian way of thinking. President Trump thinks like a Christian, and Bill Barr thinks like a Christian, and whoever it is whose cue is, they're certainly under that sway. So it's not even like your leaders can help you, because they, like you, are dualists. They are essentially dualists, and they will create duality in their world exactly the way you're creating duality in yours. They can't save you from the hell of your duality, because they're dualists too. Even if some of their intentions are good, which they are. The God of Israel is not going to allow a religion that completely misrepresents everything that God has decided is right for humanity, including human sacrifice, which you ascribe to. You're never, ever, ever, ever going to win, ultimately. God is simply not going to give victory over to those who say that human sacrifice was... You believe that God would cause another to suffer the tortures of the damned for your benefit? You're that evil, and you think that you have some kind of an approach to God? Do you even realize how evil that is? You know, somebody very, very wise once said, there are very, very different levels of evil. But the most evil of all evil is the evil that thinks that it's good. And this is precisely what happens to dualists. Eventually you reach a level where you have so cracked reality into good and evil that you become so evil that you yourself don't know what good and evil is anymore. This is the furthest out pathology of dualism, and you Christians have reached it. And unless you get a grip, I promise you, things are not going to get better. I told you this years ago. I told you years ago it's only going to get worse from this point on. Because once the Mashiach is revealed in the world, which Mashiach is for those who have eyes to see it, The other side of that, for those who see dualism, is Hamashchit, the destroyer. So since the Mashiach is here and you don't recognize the Mashiach for what Mashiach is, you can't see it in your everyday world, you're experiencing your cracked concept, which is the Mashchit, the destroyer. And it's only going to get worse. It's not going away. I guarantee you that neither Trump, with all of his good intentions, and I know he's well-intentioned, but unfortunately he's a Christian. And he will unconsciously, even though he doesn't want to, create duality. Just by looking, just by glancing on the world, he will create dualism, because that's what he subscribes to. He can't save you. Neither can Bill Barr, neither can Q. They cannot save you. They cannot help you, because they're suffering from the same delusion that you are. If anything, they're suffering from it from a level of having more influence on the world. So long as you insist upon telling lies about the God of Israel, your world is going to be a chaotic mess. And you can call me the B word or the C word or whatever word you want to call me. This is not going away. This is the reality. This is the truth that will set you free. I don't make idle promises. I am telling you now what you need to know in order to get free of the horror of having cracked your world into good and evil. You need to jump out of all of that and reach a level of innocence. And you cannot be innocent if you think that God required of anybody to suffer the tortures of the damned on a cross for your personal benefit. That's about as evil as it gets.